at a later time. I'm going to give it a couple minutes to allow people to get into the live stream. I did send out some invites to people this time, so hopefully we'll get a couple viewers anyway. And once we get started here at about the 2-minute mark, we'll explain what we're going to be doing here. Well, looks like everybody might be busy doing other things today. But they can always watch it at a later time if they so see fit. Alright, so we're going to jump in, create a new course to do this on. It may turn into a course, it may not. I am going to go through kind of the process of how I do things. If you guys have watched Crazy Canuck, there'll be a lot of stuff that's similar. But it certainly will be some things that are different as well. So we're actually going to just call this right now, not red. Hopefully we can do this all on stream, all the way up to finish at some point, and then once we do that, we'll see if we can't get the suggestions from the chat to maybe name it, because hopefully we'll have some live people by that time that are interested in watching a little bit of it. Theme. You can always change this a little bit going in the future. I haven't done a Boreal, I think, in a long time, so we're going to start with that. Terrain, I usually do, depends on what I'm looking for. I may add some later, so we're going to drop that to 0. Hills, I don't want it flat, but I don't want it to be too much. We're going to go ahead and crank that up to 100 for now. Plants, grass, and rocks I always put to 0. Layout, we don't want any of that. Hi, welcome into the viewer. Just doing a little showcase of design on the techniques that I use, because they are different from some other people, mainstreamers that you might see. But hopefully, and I did name this YouTube design course because I'm hoping that I can stream this, not all in one sitting of course, but stream this all the way to the end of the course being ready, and then I'll allow the chat at that time to help me name it once we get it closer to completion. So after I get it all set up with those settings and get into the actual plot of land, I like to go into the course settings, take the tee boxes all the way down, take the rough all the way down. And then take the heavy rough all the way down as well. And I usually, when I'm in here right now, I go ahead and decide what I want the rough to do. And in this case, for now, I think I'm going to go 7.7, I should say, and 0.7, and then I'm going to go 0.3 on these two. And I kind of consider on those two options for each heavy and light rough, I kind of consider how I want the course to play. If I want it to be harder, then I would probably drop these to 1, and those would be around somewhere between 3 and 5, more than likely. And there's usually not a lot of light roughs, so you could actually get away with probably still 7 on those if you wanted. But again, it's based on how I want the course to play, if I want it to be tougher or not, if you miss a shot or whatever. Alright, so once I get that all set, then what I do is I kind of scan around. I may look at, do I want it to be hilly? So if I do, then I'm going to go ahead and look at the environment and look at the backdrop. And I'm probably going to choose the hilliest one, just so I have some options to put stuff in and have it not look out of place. So we're going to go with that for now. Lighting, I usually do somewhere around 8 or 9 in the morning to 3 or 4 in the evening, and just because the lighting angle is pretty good for popping the bunkers. I usually set these to somewhere around 30 to 35 or 40. Go with that, and I'm going to do the same here. But again, that's whatever look you're looking for with your course, you would play with those and get that all set. Alright, so that's looking pretty good to start out. Now what I'm going to do is go into terrain. I'm going to take the trees and I'm going to go all the way down. And the reason I do that is so that I can see the plot, so that we can start forming some stuff here. So where's my light? My light's in that direction. So if I flip it around, that's probably where I'm going to want my hills to be. So what I do is I grab the raise and I do the oval fuzzy brush. If I could speak, that would help. And then you just decide what you want and where you want it. I wouldn't go too quickly for the height, because if you do like 100 foot at a time, it's going to cause big tears in your mountain face. You might be able to get away with a little more than that. 25. I wouldn't go too much more than 25 if you can help it. We're just going to raise this up a little bit, and you can use that or you could use this. Pretty much the same thing. Decide how big you want it. And I'm just doing multi-clicks. I don't have the little, some of the PC streamers have the little controller on the side to show you what buttons they're pushing. Unfortunately, I don't have that. I'm not even sure if I could get it on here. Now this is pretty time consuming to get it up to the level that you want, but again, if you go too fast with the elevation, you're going to get really big tears in your mountain faces and they don't look natural. So you don't want to do that. I think, and it may play into the name later, depending on what the people in the stream at the time decide to do, but I'm almost feeling like maybe trying to do a hilly, kind of a horseshoe shape. I don't know yet what I want to do with the water, if anything. But you just want to gradually work this up to be somewhat around the height that you're looking for. Again, you don't want to go too fast or you'll create the tears in the side of the hills, which won't look natural, so you want to be careful about that. I do have the chat on if you guys want to post any messages in there. I'd be happy to answer questions if I can. Again, I'm not the end-all be-all of design by any means, but I enjoy it. That's the main thing. As long as you have fun with the game, in whatever capacity it is. And I gotta say, I'm having much more fun designing nowadays than I am playing, because the physics on the game are just puzzling me at this particular time. Alright, so now I kind of got that getting up in the air a little bit. So what I want to do now is pick out where I kind of want to make my high spots. Start putting those in. And then we'll show you here in just a second how to rough these up a bit. Because obviously you don't want them to just be mounds per se. And don't be afraid while you're actually designing on your holes to come back and redo some of this a little bit, some here and there. There's no real right or wrong way to do it, in my opinion, as long as you enjoy doing it. And you put out at least something that you feel in your mind is a good product, then I don't see anything wrong with, you know, doing whatever you want. Alright, a little wider on that. Alright, so then what I try to do is I come back in with the rays, but I use a different brush, which is page 3. It's right here. Back out and show you again. It's right here next to the bottom on the left column, page 3. Grab that one and I reset it, because on this one I only want to go about 12 to 15 feet. And then you just do the same thing really with that one. And that will rough it up a little bit. And all I'm doing right now with this brush is just moving the left stick and spamming the X button to kind of get the roughed up mountain kind of look that I'm wanting to get to. Now you can see you start to get those brown, but because we went a little bit at a time, we're not going to get the big the big tears like you see if you do it like 100 foot at a time. Get more natural looking rockiness kind of to it. So it's starting to come together a little bit for a mountain look. And you just do that until you have the look that you're looking for. And then once you have that all set, you can start laying down your holes. Sometimes, and I do this either way, depends on what I'm looking for, you can try to do it by the terrain. Sometimes I put the trees back in and kind of let them guide where the holes go. It really depends on what you're comfortable with. I do it both ways. I don't mind either way, really. I actually, to be honest, looking at this stuff, I actually sometimes have a hard time picking out, and that's the hardest, really the hardest part, is starting, finding that first hole. You could do some stuff up on the mountain if you wanted to, and come back down. It's really up to you once you get the plot the way you want it. And we'll probably add some water in here later, maybe even make that a little bit bigger, or we might put it somewhere else. Depends on what we get throughout this process. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the trees back on and see, if that helps me any. And you can play with that as well. I do many to start out, and then you can, if you don't see really any helpful breaks in the trees, you can always reduce that down some until you find something. That's not looking too bad, really. So let's pull that back a little. It's not too bad. Let's see what else we can find here. Really, it just takes a little time scanning. Don't mind that either. Or maybe even that. Because you're going to clear, yeah, I think I like that, because you're going towards the water. Start out. I like that. So what we'll do is, we'll go ahead and lay down the first hole. And then we'll go from there. So there's going to be our tee box. We come down here. And I think I'm actually going to bring that further down because it's downhill. You can probably still reach it. And then I'm going to come along the edge of the water to back here. That looks like a decent little hole one. And normally what I'll do is go ahead and map out all the holes once I have that first one found. And then the clubhouse will be right in here probably. Let's actually go ahead and put one down just to mark the place, really. That looks like one that would be in a boreal set, yeah. So, come back here, tape that around a little bit. Boom. So we'll lay that down. And then also, you want to keep in mind whether or not you want to use cart paths, because if you're going to use cart paths, then you need a little extra room. need to find the fuzzy brush here. Give that a couple of taps to flatten out the land around the clubhouse a little bit. And then what we're going to do is start putting down surfaces so I can show you the techniques that I'm talking about. And then after we do that, we'll see if we can't maybe map out the rest of the holes. So what I do is I come down, I kind of look at the terrain a little bit to help me map out where I want this green to sit. And then once I have it there, then I go to fill. A lot of people do close and then fill, but you don't actually have to do that. It'll close it for you once you fill it. Alright, and then to go to sharpen and smooth. And then I go to toggle second surface, and in this case I'm going to go ahead and actually do fairway. And then I usually do 4. Whoop, not too far. Touchy. So I do 4 there. And then we got to back out and flatten it a little bit so that we can get it out of the water here. Alright, so that gets it out of the water like we wanted. We can always lower that and bring the water closer to the edge if we need to later. But we have the green down now. What I do next is I look at the edge of this fairway here, and I go into create surface again, and I go to rough. And what I do is I lay this down right on the edge, and it doesn't have to be perfect because it will, the way it works, it'll cover up a lot of the inconsistencies of being right on the edge, but just get it close. Plus you don't want it to take all day to do a green, right? So and then a lot of people will do, well, they don't do their heavy rough this way. A lot of them will not even do that fairway like I did around the green. They'll just do rough. And then they'll go back in with brushes and paint in the heavy rough. And they do that because when you use the splines and you do the second surface of heavy rough, it likes to put a little bit of a wavy line in your light rough, and I'll show you what I mean later once we get to that point. But people they don't really like that look. To me, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, if you are at a golf course and they're maintaining it, they're not going to mow perfectly straight every time. It's not going to be, I mean, even if you're on a well-known course, it's still not going to be perfect. It might be better than your local course, but it's still going to have its flaws because it's done by humans, and humans aren't perfect. So that doesn't bother me to see the squigglies, and I'll show you what I mean here in just a second. So we'll lay down that light rough. We'll fill it, that way it'll close the path for us, and then you'll see it pop in. There it is. Then we'll go up to sharpen and smooth, and then we'll go to toggle second heavy rough, And then I go down and I always do, well, so far I've always done 10. So I click that, and then you can see right there it got kind of squirrely a little bit. But again, you know, if I'm way back here, I can't see that. So I mean, I think some people worry about that part a little too much. But I don't mind it. So that's how I do mine. So that's why I wanted to do this video, is to show my different, I do a little bit different of a technique than some of the others use. Take that as you may. You can use it if you want. If you don't care for it, then don't use it. Make sure I did that correctly, and I did. Alright, so next what I do is I come back to the T, and I go to sculpt, and then I go to clear generated trees. I get kind of my play area figured out here width-wise of what I want to do, and then I follow the red line down. You might do like a more of an S pattern if you have a course you're doing that's, you know, not quite heavily treed, but this is the method that I use. And again, you can take out whatever trees you want. Some of your surfaces that you put down are going to take out some as well. What I will say though is I would like for that to be a little bit smoother transition, because we've actually started in part of the mountains that we made. So sometimes what I do then is I'll take the measuring tool and I'll kind of map out where I want the fairway to go, kind of an outline. Or sometimes I'll say, well, the landing area should be about right here, so I'm going to say I want that to be, let's say, 40 yards across. So I go to about 40, and that gives me an idea of where I want everything. And then also it shows me that I need to clear out some more of these trees. So we'll go ahead and do that. That corner cleared a little bit. I'm going to take that one out as well. Alright, so then what I do is I go to the measuring tool, I go up to the T box, and depending on what kind of mood I'm in, I'll take this either 120 out or I'll take it 150 out. And 50 is plenty, I think, because your standard clubs are 250, so they should reach that with any wind, regardless of whether it's uphill, downhill, or whatever. So that tells me how far back I want to come with my fairway. And then what I do is I come down here, I create an add, create surface, create fairway, spline. And I usually start on the pin here, and I come out to wherever it is I want this to come from. And then I just kind of draw it in. And you can do the windy fairways, or you could do the more straightforward fairways. It's your course, whatever you want to do with it. we'll say if you want to get a number of plays, you will want for it to play as realistically as possible. So then I take that and I do the same thing I did with the green. You can even flip around and watch it if you want. Fill. Alright, so then I come up and smooth, and that's actually the outline. That's not the smoothing of the actual surface, for those of you who don't have a lot of design experience. Then I go up to toggle rough, and then I go back to the 4 that I had. Whoops, too far. 4 that I had. And then I kind of look at it before I lay down the next spline to make sure that it has the look I want as far as how it's laid out. That actually looks pretty good, I think. So, actually, let's just do this. We'll come back up here. And I've been doing a little different tee box setup here, so we're gonna go fairway, brush. We're gonna do the longer rectangle here. Try to get it pretty close to the center. Lay that down. Back all the way out. Go to rough or heavy rough, depending on the look you want. I'm gonna do 5 clicks of light rough there, and that'll put that extra thing around with a little heavy rough outside of that. So you come back to fairway, and you can try to find, you know, your own look for your own course. Doesn't have to be the same as this. So click that down, gives me that little pattern, and back out to rough again. 5 clicks of light rough, and there's your tee box pattern, in that case anyway. Alright, so that sunk that down a little bit, so what I normally do is go back to sculpt, raise, use the oval again, kind of get within that spot there. Alright, raise that up till it's about where it should be from before. Then I want to do flatten. I'm going to do the square this time. So what I do then is I make it big enough to catch all of that pattern. And I flatten it. And then I reset the square to its default size. I go back to this spot and I raise it up about a foot, and I hit it again, and there's the tee box. Alright, so then let's go ahead and play test this. And we got one tee and one pin right now, so I do want to smooth that out so you can kind of see down the hill, hopefully a little bit. But this is just to see how far down there we can hit it with that water being there. And we'll have to flatten that out, of course. With that being flat, that could be trouble. So if we rewind that shot, Do we have the option of playing it further left there? Yeah, we actually kind of do. Trees don't help that. Uh-oh, hit a slow there, so that's probably going back where we were a minute ago. Yeah, pretty close anyway. Alright, so let's see if we can't work some of this out here. Alright, so what we'll do is come down here to the green. Sculpt and flat. And I want to go to the fuzzy round brush. And we'll just click and drag that over to the corner. Alright, and you want to kind of work out the fairway here so you're not giving an unfair, say a domed fairway really. So we're going to have some work to do here. And again, this is about what you're looking for. And you can go back in and put some hills here and there after you get everything situated. But you definitely want to kind of keep in mind, for the most part, if you have hills and things on your course, that somebody has to mow that. And if it's not realistic that it could be mowed, then it probably shouldn't be on the course that way. But again, things aren't always going to be perfect, and if you think about greens, sometimes you have slopes that really you wouldn't think would be able to be mowed, and somehow they are. So you can get away with a little bit when it comes to that, I think, but you just got to be mindful of it. So we're going to see if we can't do something with this elevation change that might be a little softer. I think in this case try to take this all the way up to the tee box. Alright. Still can't see, so we're probably going to have to lower some of that, but let's make sure we got the tee box straightened out here. Flatten that. Alright, so it looks like we need to do the raise tool, the fuzzy oval, and then I want to be right in the middle of this. Quite a bit. I have a flipping glare on my TV. I can't, not seeing very well here. Drop that down. I think I want to drop that down as well. That wasn't what I was looking for. Alright, so now let's do that, that, alright. So let's see what that does. Actually that didn't turn out too bad, really. All things considered. Got 87, so that would probably be normal 94. Lofted. Handy. And it didn't break. Story of my day. Alright guys, now we need to look at what kind of hazards we want to have in place and where. We really got water already, so there could be, really there's potential for a bunker there not to even come into play, so I don't want to do that. We do have to put down, actually let's go ahead and do that first. We got to put down our other, surface here. So what we do here is do create surface, and we go to rough, we go to spline, and we pretty much follow the pattern that was put here. By the fairway. And again, it's just like the green, you're tracing it, but it doesn't have to be spot on perfect. And I know to some people this technique seems like it takes forever, but on the other hand, if you're drawing everything in with brushes after you might do the fairway spline, but after that you draw everything in with brushes, that's going to take forever, dude. And all because you don't want the little wavies on the light rough. Seems like a bit much to me. I mean, the time doesn't seem to warrant the payoff, really. Because again, you can't, from a distance, you can't really even see it, so. And even if you do see it, like I said, it's not that big a deal. In real life, it's cut by humans. It's not going to be always perfect, so not quite sure why there's a kind of an uproar about that sometimes. And maybe it's not so much or maybe it's just a preference thing for those who do draw everything in. You can certainly use like a round brush or whatever brush you want to use and go along the edge of the heavy rough that's there defaultly off of the light rough, just to save that squiggly line. But again, I'm not quite sure how efficient that is from a what you gain perspective out of it. And I guess it is, like, if you just pick it up and drag it, you could theoretically do it in kind of the same fashion as what I'm doing here, but I don't know, I just feel like this is easier to work with. I mean, really, if you think about it, if I gotta, for whatever reason, I need to move my fairway in rough and everything, it's pretty easy to do. I just have to move these splines to the edge of my fairway wherever the new fairway position is. If you do it with the brush coloring in stuff, then you have to either put in more brushes to fill in what's now there, or I don't know if you want to delete. Depends on, I guess, the thickness of the rough you're looking for, maybe. And then go from there. So, alright, so we filled the spline, so we're going to go to sharpen and smooth. Smooth path. Did I click that? I don't remember seeing the red circles, so we'll do it again. Go to toggle second surface heavy. And then I come down and go all the way up to 10, just like around the green. And then that should kind of blend itself in. And there you go. And then let's see if we can find, like, there's one of the little squigglies right there. But again, I mean, there's not too much to it. And there's another one. And like I said, if you're out here hitting your shot, you're not going to see that. You're hardly ever going to be close enough to see it. See, there's just a little bit. So I mean, that's the technique I use. I'm fine with it. I don't fret too much about that. About that stuff that causes the squiggly lines and whatnot. Doesn't seem to be that big a deal. Still need to do some bunkers, and you'll see that heavy rough took out some of these trees, which I'm fine with that. I don't think that you could, let me go ahead and save that. I don't think you could drive that green anyway, even with the trees not there. You could probably get close, but I don't think you could quite make it. But let's check it out. Sorry, I got the hiccups, sorry. Got the hiccups all of the sudden. And the inability to speak apparently as well. So yeah, I mean, you could get close, but you're not getting all the way there, even with that elevation change. Actually, get a little bit more out of it if I loft it, so let's try that. Yeah, there's no way you're getting there. So even with that elevation change, you're going to have to think about what kind of yards you want in, and then it's going to be difficult to get that yardage because it's so drastically downhill for that hole. But that's not what we're here for. So actually that's going to be a 94. Lofted a little. Ooh, that's a nasty line. Pushed it. Distance was good. So, yeah, I mean, and the last one didn't break. That one breaks too much. Just can't figure it out, man. Aggravating. Anyway, so now, what we probably should do is go ahead and recheck the edges of the fairway. And it really didn't look all that bad. So now we have to decide where we want it's almost a false front, so I think we're actually gonna do that. That's not too much of one, but it'll do. That's the one that worries me right there. I think it's just that color makes it look like it's lofted up or lifted up, but it's not really. Strange optical illusion. Alright, so let's flatten that out a bit. Flatten that out a bit. I didn't flatten that out at all, did it? That's good. Try to smooth this out again one more time. I think part of the problem here is I forgot to turn the clouds off. Okay, because it really darkens up the course when your sun goes behind a cloud, unfortunately. Alright, so you can still see down the hole. Let's go ahead and do environment. I already did lighting, weather. Default clouds. Turn them off. High clouds. We'll come back to haze later, so let's go ahead and save that, so we'll keep that. And we don't seem to have too much interest in design right now, so we're actually going to end the stream there for now. And we'll come back in at some point and see if we can't finish this hole up and move on. Once we get this hole finished, just because I wanted to show the techniques that I use because they're different from a lot of people, then we'll see if we can't look at laying out all the holes, and hopefully we get a little bit of interest drummed up for the streams, and see if we can't get the course finished at some point with the stream helping name it. So something to look forward to. Alright, we're going to end it there. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and we're watching at a later time. Until next time, peace.